to 3 weeks might be the case, but it will not be all done at once. It will be in, they release it just like they do Social Security checks and other things in the past. It'll be in stages. He's saying in the next 2 weeks, that'll be, we'll have to see on that. The big issue is that checks could take much longer. I've seen up to 20 weeks. And that's a long time. So if you've not filed or if you have not updated that direct deposit information, I definitely would recommend doing that. As far as changing your address, if you need to do that, there's a form 8822. You would have to mail that in. It does take about 4 to 6 weeks for them to update that in their system. So if you do need to change your address from what was on the last filed tax return for 2019, then go ahead and do that now. If you haven't filed your tax return for 2019, do it now, because that automatically updates your address electronically and will save a lot of headache in the long run. And then if you have direct deposit, you can go ahead and include that too, because that will expedite the process. The big issue with Social Security recipients, as I mentioned, they're going to have to, if they don't file a tax return, they will have to match up those that have already received payments versus what's on the Social Security rolls. I anticipate that we're going to see those payments to Social Security recipients only. It's going to take a while because that takes time to kind of go through all those lists. So I just want to give people a warning out there. So if you are a Social Security only recipient, you're not required to file. You may want to file a simple tax return just to kind of expedite the process. Now, I will say there are lots of people as well who are not on Social Security that may not be required to file. That might be someone that only made a couple of $1,000s. They don't have any kids. They didn't have much withheld. Really, for a single person, the filing threshold is at $12,000. That's or $12,200 this year. That's your standard deduction. So if you make less than that and you're not qualified for any credits, you may not have filed. In order to get this stimulus payment, you will need to file. So if you know anyone in that situation who didn't file or is behind on their taxes, if they want to be eligible for this, they need to file a tax return. Could be 18 or 19. And whether they file 18 or 19 may depend on their total income. Remember those phase out thresholds. If their income is 18 is much less than 19, they may want to hold off on filing their 19 return until they get these stimulus checks. All right, the other question I get a lot is, what about offsets? There are some people who owe back taxes. They might owe student loans or other government entities. They are not going to offset these stimulus checks according to the law as it's written, except for child support. That's the one thing that I have seen that they will offset these stimulus payments for, and that is for child support. So what if you didn't qualify in 18, you made too much money, maybe you made too much money in 19 too? What happens for 2020? That's a great question. So what this will then become is a refundable credit on our 2020 tax return. We have a lot of people who were making good money in 18 and 19, but this year is going to be a different story. If you didn't get it based on 18 or 19 and your income changes significantly, that you would have been eligible for it in 2020, it won't help you now, but you will get it as a credit on your 2020 tax return. Another question I'm getting a lot is, well, am I going to have to repay this if my income is out of this threshold for 2020? As of right now, as the law is written, there is no repayment method in the tax return, only a way to get it if you did not in 2020. All right, any good questions now, Amanda?
You may have answered this, but let's do it again. To clarify, if I owe tax this year, will they use last year's direct deposit info?
Well, that's a good question. So if you owe taxes this year, no, they will use the last tax return filed. So they're not going to look at direct deposit from 2 years ago. So what they'll do is they'll issue that as a check. So I would definitely keep an eye out for that direct deposit portal so you can update your information.
Do people pay taxes on the stimulus money?
Oh, you guys are reading my mind. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so with this, taxable payments, want to keep you guys up to date on this. So the stimulus check will not be a taxable event for you. So anything that you receive this year is yours to keep, no tax. Again, for those who didn't get, you may be eligible for it on next year's tax return. Now, things that will be taxable, we're all in a tough situation right now. So I want to make sure that we are thinking ahead when it comes to taxes. If you need to go on unemployment, take a retirement distribution to help pay the bills, if you pick up a side gig to bring in some extra money, if you cash in stocks, bonds, investments, or sell a car, or sell a house, or sell some land, these are taxable events. please make sure that you're withholding tax if you can, or setting aside money to pay those taxes for your 2020 tax return. The worst thing is when people have to do something that they don't really want to, but then when they see me a year later and they see what the tax implications of that are, I don't like people crying at my desk. So please, please withhold taxes or make plans for that for next year's tax return. Very good. And then last on my list here is scams. They're all already scams. I have already seen pictures of bogus checks out there. No checks have been released, I promise you. If you get a call from the IRS, it's not the IRS. They're not going to call you. They will not email you. They will not text you. If you receive any of that, these are all phishing schemes trying to get your direct deposit and other information. Do not give them that disinformation. Something to keep an eye out for on any of these communications will be how they're wording it. If they call it a stimulus check or a stimulus payment, that is not correct. The IRS is only referring to this as an economic impact payment. So make sure that that's what you're saying, because that is the official term. If anybody offers to help you get faster payments for a fee, or you have to give them your personal information in order to do that, don't do it. This is people trying to get your information. If you get a bogus check that might be less than the amount you're expecting and says you need to call this number to reconcile it, that's also a scam. So make sure that if it seems odd to you, check with a professional. You can call our offices. We are going to be open throughout. Obviously, April 15th will be on our seasonal hours, but the phones are always answered. So we'd love to help you any way we can. If it seems suspicious, it probably is. All right. What else do we have, Miss Amanda?
No new questions right now.
All right, guys. So I'm welcome for any questions. Oh, I see one popping up here.
Yep. The SBA loan is getting a lot of attention right now. You can qualify for the grant up to $10,000. Any recommendations on applying for that, or if it's too good to be true?
That's a great question. I'm not a lender, so that's not really something I can speak a lot to, other than I've done a little bit of research on it myself. They only released the loan application information to banks late last night. So a lot of banks are still sorting through the 31 pages of information, the guidance. I will say, if it's something that you need to get your business through right now, look into it. Talk to your local lenders. We've got a lot through the chamber who will be happy to answer the questions that you have based on the information they have. A lot of this information is still developing. And with everything I've even talked about today, we've had major changes on several of these points even this week. So a lot of it's a fluid situation. We're trying to help people the best we can. So just make sure that you're keeping up with it, because it could change as more things develop. Other questions?
No, so just to double check, there's an extension for the spring taxes, right? But there's also the fall date, and right now there's no change to the fall date, right?
Correct. So if you file an extension by July 15th, you'd only have until October 15th to file, and that's normal.
All right, anybody have any other questions for Sam?
All right. Well, if you do, I'm sure you'll think of things along the way. Both of our offices are open. We'd love to help you any way we can. We have one office in Carolina Forest. That's in the Kroger Shopping Center. So if you need a couple extra things at Kroger, you can stop by and talk to us too. We're open from 9 to 5 through the week and 11 to 5 on Saturday, and also in Surfside Beach. So that's at the Food Line Shopping Center on corner of Bypass and Glens Bay Road. They're also open 9 to 5 through the week and 11 to 5 on Saturday. So we're open 6 days a week through April 15th, and then we will be on our seasonal hours, ramping back up for that July 15th deadline. But we always forward phones, and my goal is to answer questions best we can. As well, I believe my email address is listed on the Chamber's website, so you're welcome to email with any questions you have as well.
All right. So also the Facebook live stream locked up, but I did record this and I'll post it that way. If we get any questions, we'll send those. But if you guys have more questions as you're thinking about this, go ahead and post those on Facebook, and we can get those over to Sam and try to answer.
Oh, I think we've got one more. Oh, that was thanks. Yep, absolutely glad to help.
All right. Last chance to ask a question. All right, I think we're good, Sam. Thank you so much for hosting this. And Sam, also really quick, I think I saw you guys are doing like a curbside drop off too.
Yes, we'll do it anyway. We have a couple of different options. They can drop off. We'll take it out to the car for them. They just have to call when they get here. We have virtual preparation. They don't even have to come in. If they have the ability to scan and upload documents, we have a secure file server. They can do that. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for people without exposing themselves unnecessarily.
All right, that's awesome. So kudos to you guys for thinking ahead and trying to maintain social distancing, even though this is a busy time for you. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you guys. We'll see you in the webinars next week. Make sure you go to myrtlebeachareachamber.com. We've got lots of webinars, some on coping with anxiety and self-care next week coming up. I think you guys will find those really useful, and we'll see you in the next one.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye.